Imagine being so terrified of your own feelings that you destroy the one thing that could make you whole. Alyssa Warren, Millionaire CEO, thought she had everything under control, until a brilliant analyst named Emma Cole walked into her life and turned everything upside down. What happens when the woman who controls million-dollar deals can't control her own heart? Before we dive into this emotional roller coaster, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. The elevator doors closed with a soft ding. Alyssa Warren stood alone, her reflection staring back from the polished steel. She had no idea that in just a few hours, everything she thought she knew about herself would crumble. I pressed the intercom button with more force than necessary. My hands were steady. They always were. 20 years building Warren Industries from nothing had taught me that control was everything. Security? Block Emma Cole's access badge. Effective immediately. Ma'am, should I? No questions. Just do it. I released the button and leaned back in my leather chair, staring out at the Manhattan skyline. 43 floors below, people moved like ants, completely unaware that their CEO had just made the hardest decision of her life. Emma Cole. Even thinking her name made my chest tighten in ways I refused to acknowledge. 3 months. That's how long she'd been working in my company. And somehow this 26-year-old analyst had managed to do what no one else could. Make me lose focus. Her presentations were flawless, her insights brilliant, and her smile. God, that smile could light up the entire boardroom. Which was exactly the problem. I built this empire by keeping emotions locked away. My father taught me that lesson when I was 12, standing in his study after my mother left. Feelings make you weak, Alyssa. Weak people lose everything. I never forgot those words. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus, my head of security. Badge deactivated. Ms. Cole was notified. Perfect. Clean. Final. I tried to focus on the quarterly reports spread across my desk, but my mind kept drifting to this morning's meeting. Emma had been presenting the Henderson account analysis, her green eyes bright with excitement as she explained her strategy. When she looked directly at me, asking for my opinion, something inside my chest had fluttered like a trapped bird. I'd excused myself and spent 10 minutes in the bathroom, gripping the marble sink until my knuckles went white. That's when I knew she had to go. The afternoon crawled by like molasses in winter. Every time someone knocked on my door, my heart jumped, thinking it might be her. But Emma Cole was too smart for dramatic confrontations. She'd received the message loud and clear. At 6 p.m., I finally allowed myself to look at the security monitors. Her desk was empty, personal items gone. A coffee mug with a chip on the handle, the one she'd used every day, sat abandoned next to her computer like a forgotten promise. Good, I whispered to the empty office. This is for the best. But my voice cracked on the last word, betraying the lie I was telling myself. I stayed until 9, pretending to work while actually staring at that empty desk through my office window. The cleaning crew came and went, their quiet efficiency a stark contrast to the chaos in my mind. The security guard made his rounds, nodding respectfully as he passed my office. The building settled into its nighttime quiet, but my thoughts remained loud and turbulent. Finally, I gathered my things and headed for the elevator, my heels clicking against the marble floor in a rhythm that sounded too loud in the silence. The hallway felt different somehow, emptier, like something vital had been sucked out of the air, leaving behind a vacuum that made it hard to breathe. I pressed the call button and waited, watching the numbers above the elevator doors count down from the upper floors. The elevator arrived with its familiar ding. I stepped inside and pressed the button for the parking garage, my reflection multiplying in the mirrored walls like an infinite army of lonely women in expensive suits. 43 floors to think about what I'd done. 43 floors to convince myself it was right. But as the elevator descended, passing floor after floor, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd just made the biggest mistake of my life. The numbers on the display counted down like a countdown to my own destruction. 35. 30. 25. I closed my eyes and tried to summon the relief I should be feeling. Emma Cole was gone. My world was back in order. Everything was exactly as it should be. No more distractions. No more fluttering in my chest when she smiled. No more lying awake at night thinking about what it would be like to kiss her. So why did I feel like I was falling apart? The elevator shuddered slightly as it passed the 20th floor, and I opened my eyes, expecting to see the familiar descent of numbers. But something else caught my attention. Something that made my heart stop completely. There, in the corner where the wall met the floor, lay a pristine white envelope. My heart stopped beating for what felt like an eternity. The envelope lay there innocently, but I knew with absolute certainty that it would change everything. There, in the corner where the wall met the floor, lay a pristine white envelope with my name written across it in careful handwriting, not typed, not printed. Handwritten in blue ink, with the kind of careful loops that spoke of someone who still believed in taking time with words. I knew that handwriting. My hands trembled as I bent down to pick it up, my expensive suit restricting my movement. The paper was expensive, the kind you buy at specialty stores, not the cheap stuff from office supply chains. It felt substantial between my fingers, weighted with importance, and when I turned it over, I saw it was sealed with actual wax. A small E pressed into deep blue wax. Emma. The elevator continued its descent. 15, 14, 13. I stared at the envelope like it might explode in my hands. When had she left this? How had she gotten into the elevator after her badge was deactivated? My mind raced through possibilities, but security protocols were tight. Unless she'd left it before I blocked her access. Which meant she'd known what was coming. She'd anticipated my cowardice and prepared for it. 12, 11, 10. My thumb traced over my name on the envelope. Alyssa Warren. Not Ms. Warren or CEO Warren. Just Alyssa, written like she was addressing a friend. Or something more intimate than friendship. The elevator dinged softly as it reached the parking garage. The doors slid open with a mechanical whisper, revealing the dimly lit concrete space where my black Tesla waited in its reserved spot. But I couldn't move. I stood frozen in the doorway, holding this piece of paper that felt heavier than any contract I'd ever signed. "Come on, Alyssa," I whispered to myself. "It's just a letter." But my hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold it steady. I stepped out of the elevator, my heels echoing in the empty garage like gunshots. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting harsh shadows between the concrete pillars. My car was only 50 feet away, but it felt like a mile through quicksand. I made it to the driver's seat before my composure cracked completely. Sitting in the leather interior, surrounded by the familiar scent of my expensive perfume and the new car smell that still lingered after 6 months, I held the envelope up to the dome light. The paper was thick enough that I couldn't see through it, but I could feel that there were multiple pages inside. She'd written me a real letter, multiple pages of thoughts and feelings that she'd taken the time to put down on paper. When was the last time someone had done that? In this age of emails and texts and instant everything, Emma Cole had sat down with pen and paper and written me a letter, like people used to do when words mattered more than speed. My phone buzzed against the center console. A text from my assistant. "Hope you have a good evening, Ms. Warren. See you tomorrow." Tomorrow. When Emma's desk would still be empty. When the coffee mug with the chip would probably be gone, thrown away by the cleaning crew like it had never mattered. When life would go back to the way it was before she walked into my world and turned everything upside down. I looked at the envelope again, turning it over in my hands. The wax seal seemed to mock me, daring me to break it open, daring me to read whatever truths Emma had decided to leave behind like breadcrumbs for me to follow. Part of me wanted to drive straight home, pour a glass of wine, and pretend this never happened. I could throw the letter away unopened, maintain the clean break I'd worked so hard to create. By tomorrow, this would all be a memory, filed away with all the other things I'd chosen not to feel. But another part of me, a part I'd been trying to silence for 3 months, was desperate to know what she'd written. What could be so important that she'd risk coming back to leave it for me? What words had she chosen to say goodbye? The parking garage was completely silent except for the hum of the ventilation system and the distant sound of traffic from the street above. Even the city sounds seemed muted down here, like I was in a tomb 43 floors below the world of the living. It was just me, my car, and this envelope that felt like it contained dynamite. I turned the letter over in my hands one more time, feeling the weight of it, the the care that had gone into creating it. Emma had always been thoughtful. It was one of the things that had drawn me to her. The way she considered every angle, every possibility, before making a decision. Unlike me, who had acted on fear and blocked her badge without even talking to her first. The wax seal caught the light from the dome lamp, and I realized my hands had finally stopped shaking. Whatever was inside this envelope, whatever Emma had felt compelled to tell me, I needed to know, even if it destroyed me completely. I broke the wax seal with my thumbnail, the blue wax crumbling onto my lap like tiny pieces of a broken promise. The envelope opened easily, and I could see several pages of that same careful handwriting folded inside, waiting to reveal secrets I wasn't sure I was ready to hear. My heart hammered against my ribs as I unfolded the letter. The dome light cast a warm glow over the pages, and Emma's words seemed to shimmer on the expensive paper, like they were alive. Dear Alyssa, if you're reading this, then you've already made your decision about my future at Warren Industries. I'm writing this on Tuesday night, after our meeting about the Henderson account, because I saw something in your eyes that told me my time here is ending. Tuesday night. She'd written this 2 days ago, before I'd even consciously decided to block her badge. How had she known? How had she read me so clearly when I thought I'd been hiding my feelings so well? I want you to know that I understand why you're letting me go. It's not about my work. We both know my performance has been exemplary. It's about what's happening between us. The thing we've both been pretending doesn't exist but can't ignore anymore. My breath caught in my throat. She knew. Of course she knew. Emma had always been perceptive, able to read people and situations with an accuracy that made her invaluable in business. I should have realized she'd turn that same insight on me. I've been in love with you since my second week here. The words hit me like a physical blow. I had to read them 3 times before they sank in, each reading making them more real, more impossible to deny. Emma Cole, brilliant, beautiful, 26-year-old Emma Cole, was in love with me. I know how that sounds. The young employee falling for her powerful boss. It's a cliché. And I hate clichés almost as much as I hate admitting to feelings that make me vulnerable. But what I feel for you isn't some schoolgirl crush or misplaced admiration for your success. It's real, Alyssa. It's the kind of love that keeps me awake at night, wondering what it would be like to see you smile. Really smile. Just once. My hands were shaking again. I set the letter down on my lap and pressed my palms against my eyes, trying to process what I was reading. Emma loved me. The one person I'd been trying so desperately to push away loved me with the kind of intensity I'd only read about in books. I've watched you in meetings, seen how your mind works, how you can solve problems that would stump entire teams of consultants. I've seen you stay late to help junior analysts with their presentations, even though you pretend you don't care about anything but the bottom line. I've seen the way you look out your office window when you think no one is watching, like you're searching for something you can't name. She'd been watching me. Really watching me. Not just seeing the CEO mask I wore for everyone else. She'd seen through my carefully constructed facade to the woman underneath. The one I'd been hiding for so long I'd almost forgotten she existed. I know you feel it too. I see it in the way you look at me when you think I'm not paying attention. I feel it in the tension that fills the room whenever we're alone together. Like the air itself is charged with electricity. You're scared, and I understand why. Love is terrifying when you've built your life on control. Tears blurred my vision. When was the last time I'd cried? I couldn't remember. CEOs don't cry. Successful women don't break down in parking garages over love letters. But here I was, falling apart like a teenager reading her first love note. I'm not writing this to make you feel guilty or to change your mind about letting me go. I'm writing this because you deserve to know the truth, even if it's a truth you don't want to hear. Someone should tell you that you're worth loving, Alyssa. Not Warren Industries CEO Alyssa, not millionaire businesswoman Alyssa, but you. The woman who keeps a photo of her childhood dog hidden in her desk drawer. The woman who orders the same coffee every morning but pretends she doesn't have routines. The woman who hums when she thinks no one can hear. How did she know about the photo? About my humming? I thought I'd been so careful, so controlled. But Emma had seen through all of it, cataloging my small human moments like they were treasures worth remembering. I'm leaving because staying would be torture for both of us. You'll never let yourself love me the way I love you. and I can't pretend to be satisfied with stolen glances and professional conversations when what I want is to know everything about you. I want to know what makes you laugh, what keeps you up at night, what you dream about when you finally let your guard down. The letter continued for 2 more pages, but I had to stop reading. My chest felt tight, like someone had wrapped steel bands around my lungs and was slowly tightening them. Emma's words were breaking down walls I'd spent decades building, exposing parts of myself I'd forgotten existed. She loved me. Really, truly loved me. Not my money or my power or my reputation, but me, the real me, hidden beneath layers of armor and ambition. And I'd thrown her away like she meant nothing. I forced myself to continue reading, even though each word felt like a scalpel cutting through my carefully constructed defenses, exposing nerves I'd thought were long dead. I know you're probably wondering how I figured out your feelings. It wasn't any one thing. It was 1,000 little moments. The way your voice softens when you say my name. How you always find excuses to walk past my desk, even when you're heading in the opposite direction. The time you brought me coffee when I was working late, and your fingers brushed mine when you handed me the cup. You pulled away like you'd been burned, but for just a second, I saw something raw and real in your eyes. She was right. I remembered that night 3 weeks ago with perfect clarity. I'd been working late, reviewing contracts for the Morrison deal, when I noticed the light still on at her desk. She'd been hunched over her computer, completely absorbed in her work, a strand of hair falling across her face in a way that made my chest ache. I'd gone to the break room and made 2 cups of coffee without even thinking about it. It wasn't until I was standing beside her desk, watching her look up at me with surprise and gratitude, that I realized what I was doing. The moment our fingers touched, electricity had shot through my entire body. The thing is, Alyssa, I understand why you're scared. I've done my research on you, not the public stuff that everyone knows, but the real story. I know about your father, about how he raised you after your mother left when you were 12. I know about the first company you tried to start when you were 22, how your business partner betrayed you and stole your ideas. I know about David. My blood turned to ice. David. She knew about David. How could she possibly know about David? I know he broke your engagement 3 days before the wedding because he said you were too cold, too focused on work. I know he told you that loving you was like trying to hug a glacier. I know that's when you decided never to let anyone close enough to hurt you again. The letter blurred as tears filled my eyes again. David Morrison. The only man I'd ever thought I could love, until he proved that love was just another way to lose everything that mattered. I'd been 28, finally ready to let someone into my carefully guarded world. David was charming, successful, everything I thought I wanted in a partner. For 2 years, I'd tried to be the woman he wanted, softer, more available, less focused on my career. It had been the biggest mistake of my life. The night he called off the wedding, he'd stood in my apartment, our apartment, and told me I was incapable of real love. You're like a beautiful statue, Alyssa. Perfect to look at, but cold to the touch. I can't marry someone who loves her company more than she could ever love me. But here's what David never understood. What no one has ever understood until now. You're not cold, Alyssa. You're protecting something precious. You're protecting a heart that feels everything so deeply it scares you. I see it when you think no one is looking. I see the woman behind the CEO mask, and she's beautiful. I had to put the letter down. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the pages. Emma saw me, really saw me, in ways I'd never let anyone see me before. She'd looked past the armor and found the woman I'd been hiding. How had she gotten past my defenses so easily? How had she seen through the walls that had taken me decades to build, brick by careful brick? I'm not David, Alyssa. I'm not going to demand that you choose between love and success. I fell in love with your ambition, your drive, your incredible mind. I don't want to change you. I want to love you exactly as you are. But I also want to love the parts of you that you keep hidden, the parts that laugh at terrible movies and cry during commercials with dogs, the parts that are human. She was describing a version of myself I'd forgotten existed. The woman I used to be before I learned that vulnerability was a luxury I couldn't afford. Before I learned that showing weakness meant losing everything. I know you're going to let me go because you think it's safer. You think that if you push me away now, you can go back to the way things were before. But you can't, Alyssa. You can't unknown what we both know now. You can't unfeel what you feel for me. She was right. Even sitting here in my car, holding her letter, I could feel the truth of her words settling into my bones like a poison or a cure. I couldn't tell which. There was no going back. Emma Cole had changed something fundamental inside me, and no amount of distance was going to fix that. I want you to know that I don't regret falling in love with you, even knowing how this ends, even knowing that you'll choose fear over love. I don't regret a single moment. You've made me believe in the kind of love I thought only existed in movies. You've made me want to be better, stronger, more than I ever thought I could be. The final page was shorter, her handwriting slightly less controlled, as if emotion had finally overtaken her careful composure. I hope someday you'll find the courage to let someone love you the way you deserve to be loved. I hope you'll realize that being vulnerable doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. And I hope you'll remember that somewhere in this city, there's a woman who loves you completely, unconditionally, and without reservation. Forever yours, whether you want me or not, Emma. I sat in the silence of the parking garage, holding the letter against my chest, feeling like my entire world had shifted on its axis. Emma loved me, not despite my flaws, but including them, not despite my walls, but in spite of them. And I'd thrown her away like yesterday's newspaper. I drove home in a daze, Emma's letter burning like a brand against my chest, where I'd tucked it inside my jacket. My penthouse apartment felt cold and empty when I walked in, the floor-to-ceiling windows offering a spectacular view of Manhattan that suddenly meant nothing compared to what I'd lost. I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on my white leather couch, reading Emma's letter again and again. Each time, her words cut deeper, revealing truths I'd been running from my entire adult life. Each reading made me realize how completely I'd misunderstood what love could be. By midnight, I'd made my decision. I had to find her. I spent the rest of the night at my computer, pulling up every piece of information I could find about Emma Cole. Her employment file gave me her address, a small apartment in Brooklyn. Her emergency contact was listed as her sister, Sarah Cole, in Portland. Her previous employer was a mid-sized consulting firm, where she'd worked for 3 years before joining Warren Industries. I memorized every detail, every piece of her life that I could access through official channels. It felt invasive, but I was desperate. I'd spent 3 months trying not to know everything about her, and now I needed to know everything. At 6 a.m., I was dressed and in my car, driving toward Brooklyn with my heart hammering against my ribs like it was trying to escape my chest. I'd never done anything like this before. CEOs don't chase after employees. Successful women don't show up unannounced at people's apartments like stalkers. But I wasn't just a CEO anymore. I was a woman who'd finally realized what she'd lost, and I was willing to do anything to get it back. Emma's building was a converted brownstone in Park Slope, the kind of place where young professionals lived when they were still climbing the ladder toward something better. The neighborhood was charming in a way my sterile penthouse could never be. Tree-lined streets, small cafes, the kind of community I'd never allowed myself to be part of. I stood outside for 10 minutes, gathering courage, before finally pressing the buzzer for apartment 3B. My finger trembled as I pushed the button, and I held my breath waiting for her voice. No answer. I tried again, pressing longer this time. Still nothing. "Excuse me." I called to a woman walking her dog, a golden retriever that reminded me painfully of Buster. "Do you know Emma Cole? Apartment 3B? The woman looked me up and down, taking in my expensive suit, an obvious desperation. She seemed to weigh whether to help me or call the police. "Emma? She moved out yesterday. Had a moving truck and everything, seemed like she was in a hurry." My heart sank into my stomach. Did she say where she was going? Sorry, no. But she seemed pretty upset about something. Kept checking her phone like she was waiting for a call that never came. I thanked the woman and walked back to my car on unsteady legs. Emma was gone. Really gone. She'd packed up her entire life and disappeared, and it was my fault. She'd been waiting for me to call, to reach out, to show some sign that I'd read her letter and cared, but I wasn't giving up. I spent the next 2 days calling in every favor I had. Private investigators, former employees who might have stayed in touch with her, even her old college roommate whose number I found through a mutual LinkedIn connection. I was shameless in my desperation, using my wealth and connections in ways that would have horrified me a week ago. Nothing. Emma Cole had vanished as completely as if she'd never existed. No forwarding address, no social media updates, no digital footprint that my investigators could follow. She'd disappeared like a ghost, leaving only the memory of her letter and the ache in my chest that grew stronger every hour. On Thursday morning, I was sitting in my office, staring at her empty desk through my window, when my assistant knocked. The sight of that vacant space had become a form of torture, but I couldn't stop looking at it. "Ms. Warren, there's a call for you. Someone from Hartwell and Associates." Hartwell and Associates. I knew that name. They were one of our biggest competitors, a consulting firm that had been trying to poach our best talent for years. They were good, but not as good as us. Not usually. "Put them through," I said, though something cold was settling in my stomach like a stone. "Ms. Warren, this is Jennifer Hartwell. I wanted to thank you for the excellent reference you provided for Emma Cole." The world tilted sideways. "Reference?" "Yes, for her interview yesterday. She mentioned that you'd be happy to speak on her behalf. And when we called, your assistant was very helpful. Emma will be starting with us on Monday as a senior analyst. We're thrilled to have someone of her caliber." I managed to get through the rest of the conversation without screaming, though I'm not sure how. After I hung up, I called my assistant immediately, my hands shaking with rage and desperation. "The reference for Emma Cole, when did that call come in?" "Yesterday afternoon, Ms. Warren. You were in meetings all day, so I handled it." I gave her a glowing recommendation, just like you always do for departing employees. Was that wrong? No, it wasn't wrong. It was standard procedure, the professional thing to do. But it meant Emma had been interviewing, had gotten a job, was moving on with her life while I was falling apart. I had her new employer's address within an hour. Hartwell and Associates occupied 3 floors of a gleaming office building in Midtown, the kind of place that screamed success and ambition. I knew I was crossing every professional line by showing up there, but I didn't care anymore. I'd lost everything that mattered once before by playing it safe. I wasn't going to make that mistake again. The lobby was all marble and glass, designed to impress clients and intimidate competitors. Under normal circumstances, I would have appreciated the aesthetic. Today, it just felt like another barrier between me and Emma. The receptionist looked confused when I asked for Emma Cole, her perfectly manicured eyebrows drawing together in concern. "I'm sorry, but Ms. Cole doesn't start until Monday. Is there something I can help you with? Do you know where she is now? It's urgent." My voice came out more desperate than I'd intended, and I saw the woman's expression shift from confusion to suspicion. "I'm sorry, but I can't give out personal information about our employees." I was about to argue, to use my name and reputation to demand answers, when I heard a familiar voice behind me. "Alyssa?" I turned around, and there she was. Emma Cole, standing in the lobby of her new company, looking at me like she'd seen a ghost. She looked different somehow. Her hair was shorter, cut into a sleek bob that framed her face in a way that made my heart skip. She wore a navy blue dress I'd never seen before, and there were dark circles under her green eyes that spoke of sleepless nights. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice carefully neutral, professionally polite. I opened my mouth to speak, but nothing came out. I'd rehearsed this moment 100 times during the drive over, but now that she was standing in front of me, all my carefully planned words evaporated like morning mist. "I got your letter," I finally managed. Something flickered across her face. Surprise, maybe, or pain. Her composure cracked for just a moment before she rebuilt it. "I didn't think you'd read it." I read it. All of it. Multiple times. The lobby was busy with people coming and going, and I could feel curious stares from the reception desk. This wasn't the place for the conversation we needed to have, but I couldn't wait any longer. "Can we talk somewhere private?" I asked. Emma hesitated, glancing around the lobby like she was looking for an escape route. "I don't think that's a good idea, Alyssa. Please." The word came out more desperate than I'd intended, raw and honest in a way that made her eyes widen. "Just 5 minutes." She studied my face for a long moment, and I wondered what she saw there. The composed CEO was gone, replaced by a woman who'd spent 3 days falling apart and rebuilding herself into someone brave enough to chase after love. "There's a coffee shop around the corner," she said finally, "but I can't stay long. I have another meeting." We walked in silence through the busy Manhattan streets. The sky was gray and threatening, the kind of afternoon that promised rain. I kept stealing glances at Emma, trying to reconcile this polished, distant woman with the person who'd written me that devastating letter. The coffee shop was small and crowded, filled with the usual mix of business people and freelancers hunched over laptops. We found a table in the back corner, away from the main flow of traffic. Emma sat across from me, her posture perfect, her expression carefully neutral. "So," Emma said, settling into her chair with the kind of careful composure I recognized from boardrooms, "you read my letter? Why didn't you tell me?" The question burst out of me before I could stop it. "Why didn't you just talk to me instead of writing a letter?" Emma's laugh was bitter, a sound that cut through me like broken glass. "Talk to you? Alyssa, you've barely said 10 words to me that weren't work-related in 3 months. Every time we were alone together, you found an excuse to leave. You think I didn't notice?" She was right. I had been avoiding her, running from the feelings that terrified me more than any hostile takeover or board meeting. "I was scared," I admitted. "I know you were. That's why I wrote the letter. I thought maybe if I put it all down on paper, you'd understand that I wasn't trying to trap you or change you. I just wanted you to know that someone saw you. Really saw you." Thunder rumbled overhead, and the first drops of rain began to streak the coffee shop windows like tears. "I fired you because I was falling in love with you," I said quietly. Emma's carefully composed expression cracked slightly. "I know. I've never felt anything like this before, not even with David. What I feel for you, it terrifies me, Emma. It makes me want to throw away everything I've built, everything I've worked for. I never asked you to do that, I know. That's what makes it worse. You love me exactly as I am, and I don't know how to handle that." The rain was coming down harder now, drumming against the windows and turning the street outside into a blur of umbrellas and hurrying figures. The coffee shop felt like a sanctuary, a small pocket of warmth in the storm. "So what do you want from me, Alyssa?" Emma's voice was tired, worn down by days of uncertainty. "You've already made your choice. You chose your walls over me. You chose fear over love. I've accepted that. Have you?" I leaned forward, desperate to make her understand, because I can't accept it. I can't go back to the way things were before you. I've tried, Emma. I've spent 3 days trying to convince myself that I made the right choice. But I can't. I can't stop thinking about you. I can't stop reading your letter. I can't stop imagining what it would be like if I was brave enough to love you back. Emma's eyes filled with tears, but her voice remained steady. "But you're not brave enough, are you? You're here because you feel guilty, not because you've actually changed. You're wrong." I reached across the table and took her hand, not caring who might see, not caring about professional boundaries or what people might think. "I'm here because I love you. I'm here because I'd rather risk everything than lose you." For a moment, neither of us spoke. The coffee shop buzzed with conversation around us, but it felt like we were in our own bubble, suspended in time and possibility. "I start my new job on Monday," Emma said finally. "Don't. Alyssa. Come back to Warren Industries. Come back to me." Emma pulled her hand away from mine, and I felt the loss like a physical pain. "As what? Your employee? Your secret? What exactly are you offering me?" The question hung between us like a challenge. Outside, the rain had turned into a downpour, and I could see people running for cover under awnings and doorways. "I don't know," I admitted. "I don't have all the answers, Emma. All I know is that I love you, and I'm tired of being afraid." Emma stared at me for what felt like an eternity, her green eyes searching my face for something I hoped she would find. The rain continued to pound against the windows, creating a cocoon of sound around our small table. "You love me," she said finally. It wasn't a question, but there was wonder in her voice, like she couldn't quite believe it. "I love you," I repeated, and saying it out loud felt like jumping off a cliff. "I love your brilliant mind and your terrible jokes and the way you hum when you're concentrating. I love that you see through all my bullshit and love me anyway. I love that you're brave enough to write letters and take risks and put your heart on the line." Tears were streaming down Emma's face now, but she was smiling. "You noticed my humming. I notice everything about you. That's the problem." She laughed, a sound that was half sob, half joy. "That's not a problem, Alyssa. That's love." I reached for her hand again, and this time she didn't pull away. Her fingers intertwined with mine, and I felt something inside my chest unlock, like a door I'd kept barred for decades finally swinging open. "I can't come back to Warren Industries," she said softly. My heart sank. "Emma." "Not as your employee, not with that power dynamic between us. It wouldn't be fair to either of us." She was right, and I knew it. What we had was too important to risk on workplace politics and whispered rumors. "Then what do we do?" I asked. Emma squeezed my hand. "We figure it out, together. Maybe I stay at Hartwell for a while. Prove that this isn't about career advancement or using you for professional gain. Maybe we take things slow, see if what we have can survive outside the pressure cooker of your office." "I don't want to take things slow," I said, surprising myself with my honesty. "I've wasted enough time being afraid." "Then we don't take things slow. But we do take them honestly. No more walls, Alyssa. No more running when things get scary." I nodded, feeling lighter than I had in years. No more walls. The rain was starting to ease, and shafts of sunlight were breaking through the clouds, casting everything in a golden glow that made Emma's face look luminous. "There's something else," Emma said, her cheeks flushing pink. "In my letter, I didn't tell you everything." "What do you mean?" She took a deep breath. "I meant what I said about loving you exactly as you are, but I also have dreams about us, about what we could be together. I dream about lazy Sunday mornings and terrible reality TV, and you letting me see you without makeup. I dream about being the person you call when you've had a bad day, about being your safe place the way you've become mine." My throat tightened with emotion. "Those are good dreams. They are. And I dream about supporting your ambitions, about being your partner in every sense of the word. I don't want to change you, Alyssa, but I do want to love all of you, even the parts you think are unlovable." I stood up abruptly, pulling her with me. "Come on." "Where are we going?" "My apartment. I want to show you something." We ran through the rain to my car, laughing like teenagers as we got soaked. Emma's carefully styled hair was plastered to her head, and my expensive suit was probably ruined, but I didn't care. For the first time in my adult life, I didn't care about maintaining my image. Back at my penthouse, I led Emma to my bedroom and opened the bottom drawer of my nightstand. Inside, wrapped in tissue paper, was a small framed photo. "This is Buster," I said, showing her the picture of a golden retriever puppy. "He was my dog when I was 8. He died right before my mother left, and I've kept his picture all these years." Emma took the frame with gentle hands, studying the photo of me as a gap-toothed child, hugging a fluffy puppy. "You were adorable," she said softly. "I haven't shown that picture to anyone. Ever." Emma looked up at me, understanding dawning in her eyes. "You're letting me in." "I'm letting you in," I confirmed. "All the way in. No more walls, remember?" She set the photo carefully on my nightstand and pulled me into her arms. When she kissed me, it was soft and sweet and full of promise. It was the kiss of two people who had found their way to each other despite all the obstacles they'd created. "I love you, Alyssa Warren," she whispered against my lips. "I love you too, Emma Cole. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving it." 6 months later, Emma was thriving at Hartwell & Associates, and I was learning how to balance being a CEO with being someone's girlfriend. It wasn't always easy. We had fights about my workaholic tendencies and her stubborn independence. But it was real. It was honest. It was everything I'd been too afraid to want. And every morning, When I woke up next to the woman who'd had the courage to write me a love letter, I thanked whatever force in the universe had put that envelope in my elevator. Sometimes the best things in life come disguised as the scariest. Sometimes love requires us to tear down everything we think we know about ourselves and start over. Sometimes, if we're very lucky, someone loves us enough to show us who we really are. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe to the channel and share it with someone who needs to hear that love is worth the risk. Let me know in the comments, have you ever been brave enough to write a love letter?